Okay, I think that we are close to being able to start up this session. First of all, welcome very much to you all. Very happy to see this great interest of our webinar, where we will be presenting the the basics of Revisto. Without further ado, let's jump a little bit into a short presentation. As you can see, it will be hosted by me, Martin Birk, and my esteemed colleague Louis Guy will be doing the actual demo of the software. We have, as always, a little bit of practicalities. I can see that everybody has been very good at muting their microphones already, so thank you for that. The session will, of course, be recorded, and a link will be sent to all sign-ups so that you can revisit if you want to do that, share with your colleagues or anything like that. Of course, always feel free to contact us for any follow-up questions that you might have, and if you have not received the link, so that we can supply that to you. A little bit of background about me. I know that a lot of people attending today have met me before and know me from my days with both Revit and Tekla especially. I was responsible for introducing both Revit and Tekla to the Danish market, and have had a lot of contact there, of course. Especially during my period in Tekla, I was there for 12 years. I was very much involved with the interactions of other softwares, and one of the things that we often encountered was that was a bit of a hassle to do. I even have this picture from a presentation that I did many years back, where I was actually introducing the BCF formats to the Danish market, and explaining why we had these issues with the IFC, BCF, and so on, and that the main issue was that we didn't have a centralized collaboration format in order to do all these exchanges and coordinations that we needed to do. So when I was contacted by Revisto, it was clearly obvious for me that that would be the natural next step in my career, to be able to work with the missing link, the unicorn that we have been looking for so many years. Many have tried and have stated to be a centralized collaboration platform, but all have failed in my eyes. It's been partly work been done up, been split up in models, and creating a little bit of a hassle of a workflow, to be honest. Also, one thing is that I had very limited knowledge of Revisto when they contacted me, and I think that the knowledge in Scandinavia in general is quite limited. But make no mistake, we are huge worldwide, with 2,500 global clients and 160,000 users. The 95% retention rate, I don't know if that means anything to you, but that's renewal of licenses, and it's for many of my colleagues in the market, the 85% is like the unachievable. To beat that with 10% is crazy, and just means that we have some of the most happy customers in the whole world. The things that we will try to convey to you today, that we will have to try and make obvious, is of course the power of Revisto. Revisto is based on Unity, a gaming engine, which gives it the performance that allows to involve all the models, and not just one model up against another model, but all the models in the project in the same environment. And we actually have a record. I'm not allowed to say who it is, but we actually have a record of as close to make no difference 1,000 models in the same Revisto environment. So we are able to handle unprecedented amounts of data and with ease. And speaking about ease, the use of Revisto is very intuitive and easy to learn, and we see a lot of people who have sworn never to touch any kind of BIM environment or platform, leaping over it today and using it on a day-to-day basis. And of course, I think we all know that the value of BIM is unexplored to a great degree, and we have a lot of people who are not involved. It's kind of limited to a group of people, limited to a company, and to be able to do this on a broader scale with more people involved, more companies involved, has a huge value that is yet to be explored. And also, many of the things that we are facing today with file conversions and complex workflows and information searches, that is often a big hassle, is now, with the use of Revisto, a thing of the past. And dare we say so, it is even fun to use. That's my experience, at least. So without further ado, I will switch over to my colleague Louis Guy, who will do the live demo for us.
Perfect, thank you, Martin. So, yeah. Hello, everybody. So my name is Lewis. I'm a technical director at Revisto. So I head up the team that does all the implementation, training, working with our customers to ensure that Revisto is successfully rolled out and make sure that everyone gets the best out of the tool. We also work very closely with our development team to make sure that what our customers want is sort of shown in the actual application. So we're going to break the session down into sort of two main parts. The first part will be running through what is Revisto, just to give a lot of people who may not be overly familiar with the tool an idea of what it is, what the basics are. And then we'll also spend a little bit of time running through our Clash automation tool. We still kind of talk about that as a new tool in Revisto, but it's been available now for almost a year. And the customers of ours that are using it absolutely love it. So I'm very excited to show you kind of what our Clash automation tool is all about. So we'll get started with the basics, and to follow on from what Martin said around the project that's got kind of 1,000+ models in it. One of the key things with Revisto is that because we're an application application-based tool as opposed to a cloud-based tool, it means that we can handle much bigger data sets. So in Revisto, it's not uncommon for us to have 30, 40, 50 gigabytes worth of models running inside of Revisto, and because it's then running through Unity, it also doesn't require a powerful machine to do so. It's able to handle it on a fairly basic sort of laptop and fairly basic device. And again, that can then be transferred down onto sort of iPads or Android tablets and things like that. So again, that's one of the key things for us, is that our models are stored in the cloud, but we're running everything through an application. So size really isn't an issue for Revisto, which is a really sort of plus point for us, for our customers and things like that. So Revisto, for those of you that don't know, is a collaboration platform at its heart. So we are a tool where you can bring all your models together into one place. The project that I'm showing on the screen at the moment is a building project where the files are all coming from Revit, but this is just because this is a use case that we use for a lot of our demonstrations. Our models can be brought in from Revit, from ArchiCAD, from Tekla, from Vectorworks, from MicroStation. IFC files can be pulled in directly. We can push models into Navisworks. We can read point cloud data directly in Revisto as well. So we are a sort of a one-stop shop for all your model formats that you would expect to see, and they can all be viewed in here. But beyond that, we're also a tool where we can look at our 2D drawings. We are an issue tracker, and again, moving on into the more advanced stuff, we can then do all the class detection and everything like that as well. One thing that I will just mention before I jump in, there is a Q&A button that you should see available in the window. If you do have any questions for me, do feel free to post them in there. I think Martin will be reviewing them as we go, and he may sort of jump in and interrupt me as I go, or we'll save them up until the end and we'll answer them kind of at the end of the session. But do please feel free to use the Q&A button to raise questions. So we'll start off in the 3D space of Revisto. So as I mentioned, we can view all of our 3D models in here. So in this case here, we've got Revit files, we've got point cloud data. There are some IFCs in here that have been pushed in from Tekla. And within Revisto, you may see a little bit of lag. That's purely because we're running this on Zoom. We're doing a video share. On my screen, there is absolutely zero lag whatsoever. We're able to handle these big data sets. This project, just to give you kind of a bit of an understanding, I think we're currently running up to around about sort of 5 or 6 gigabytes worth of data in here. So it's not a small project by any stretch of the imagination, but again, it handles very smoothly. So we are a 3D viewer, so we can now sort of look at our 3D model. We can run around and see what's going on in here. We are, BIM is at the heart of what we do. So that means that if we're looking at something, I can just simply double click on it. And we see all the data for it, all the property information that is available in the native authoring tool is transferred across into Revisto. So we can see all that information in here. So again, I can see that this is a sprinkler. Our properties are sort of interactive, which means that I can just right click on it and I can say find the same. That automatically now is selected 52,540 components. And if I wanted to, I could isolate those out to see where they're located, or I could isolate it in transparency so I can see where they are around sort of the other models. And that allows me to then start zooming towards them. So I can come over here and I can see where those sprinklers are and things like that. A sprinkler may have been a bad example in that case, but it's a very easy tool to use to find objects. Again, I'll do it with columns as well, just to show it. So we've got a 500 CHS concrete field. Again, I can just say find the same. There are 35 on the project. Again, I can just isolate that in transparency and I can see where they all are. I can just spin around and visualize all that information in the model. So from a model viewer perspective, it's a very easy tool to use. It doesn't take very much time with the tool to become a bit of an expert in flying around it. We have got users that are kind of site-based users that are used to looking at like wet drawings on building sites, who you give them a half-an-hour training session and they're flying around the models and they're seeing everything that they want to see. So it's a very easy, very intuitive tool to use. It doesn't require much expertise. So all the data's in here, all the models are in here. We have a search bar within the object tree. This is quite a useful function. It kind of allows you to almost like Google the building, as we kind of refer to it. So if I want to find, let's just say, all the doors on the project, I can just type in here, doors. That's now immediately found that there's 1,744 doors. Again, I can isolate them if I want to. I can see all that information available immediately. So it's a very easy tool to review and look at the 3D model without spending sort of too much time trying to figure out what's going on. It's very quick, very easy to do so. I said the properties are all available. This is a good thing and a bad thing in some scenarios. So depending on what tool you're using, it could mean that you have a huge amount of data exposed, and it's not always straightforward to try and find that bit of information that you're interested in. So this pipe here, there's a huge amount of information available. We have property favorites, so you can actually go through the data and pull out the ones that are most important to you. So I've got one set up here already called MEP Systems. That automatically pulls the data that I'm interested in to the top of the list. So I don't have to scroll through this big long sort of set of information trying to find the properties that I care about. That's automatically available to me here. And the other good thing with the favorite properties is I don't even need the properties open to see this data now. So on here, I've got kind of my system types, the size of the object, things like that. What I can do now is I can just hover over any component and I'll automatically see those favorites available on the screen straight away. So when I'm reviewing this, if I come into the model and we go, I'm just going to isolate out all the pipes in the project. I'm then going to just hide all the insulation. So I just search for the word insulation. And I can then hide that. So now I'm looking at just purely pipes. I can just hover over any of this sort of stuff. If we see a pipe here, I want to know how long this pipe is. I can hover over and I can see there that it's 8.7 meters long. So I don't have to spend very much time looking for the information to have it available either. So it's a huge time saver for anybody trying to review the models and see what's going on. So all that data is available to everybody on the project, which again just saves a lot of time. If there's areas in the model that you're often reviewing, we can save viewpoints, we can cut sections. So for example, this area here between these two beams is somewhere that I'm reviewing. I can create a section box around it. I can then edit the section box, make it bigger, sort of stretch it out, whatever I want to do. Once that's done, once I'm happy with that location, I can then go to my viewpoints and I can save this as a viewpoint, and I'm just going to say beam review, whatever it might be. Again, the good thing about this is that, first of all, this is available to anybody on the project. So you might say to someone, oh, just review that viewpoint. It's available for them straight away. They can just come here and click on it. But the other good thing is that we always start with the same view at the very start of the project whenever you open Revisto. But I can immediately now just click on my beam review. It will take me straight here. If I'm hiding models, just get rid of that again. So if I'm going through the project and I'm saying, I don't want to see the architectural file, I can hide that. And let's say we want to make the structural model the color white, just so that it's clear. I can change the color of that and we can say, okay, make that one white. So that's now done that. I can update that one, and that's now stored in here again. So the home viewpoint has everything visible. I can just come straight to my viewpoint and it's going to save all that information in here, so I can quickly and easily review it whenever we need to, just to make sure that area is being developed. So viewpoints are really useful to set up areas for review, to be able to get back to them very quickly whenever you need to. It's a very easy tool to navigate. We can navigate with the mouse. Obviously, we can scroll into the building. But if you've got a lot of stories, it might be quite difficult to work out exactly where you are. So we have this map function. This is one of my favorite functions of Revisto, actually, like from a long time user of the tool before joining the company. Whenever we showed anybody this tool, it kind of changed the way in which they navigated the project. So what we've done here is we've automatically generated kind of a projection plan view using the 3D geometry. Down the right-hand side, we have the levels of the building. At this point, I can just say, show me level 4. So that's now cut my building down to level 4. I can then zoom in. We can see the room names. If I turn the grids on, we can see the grid references. So I can work out where I am quite quickly, quite easily. If I want to go into this teaching space, I can now just double click and immediately I'm taken to that position in the model. So you don't have to worry about ending up in the wrong place or at the wrong level. You can use the map feature to navigate exactly where you are. You've got this little blue icon that shows you where you're positioned. And again, I can just switch up to level 9 and I can then say, take me to this office. And then immediately that's where I am in the project. So using the map is a really quick and easy way to navigate the project. The room data is also available to us in here. So I'll let Reese take over in a moment, but not just yet. It's in here we can search for rooms. So if we're looking for a particular breakout area, I can just type in the breakout space. I can actually sort this by level. And if I take breakout now into here, it's then going to show me at what level the breakout spaces are as well. So I can see whether or not they're at level 10, level 12, whatever. So at this point, I can say, oh, I want to jump to the lounge breakout space here at level 7. I can click on that one. And again, immediately it's jumped me to that location. So it's really easy for anybody to navigate the project and get to the right area without really thinking about it. We can take measurements. So we've got a measurement tool in here. So I can just drag this between two positions, and then we can sort of take a Z value. I've got a laser rule, which is it automatically works out the shortest distance between any two objects. A minimum measurement tool, which is perfect for kind of building services if they're trying to work out access zones and maintenance routes. All you do here is just select any two objects in the model and it will automatically work out the shortest distance, whether or not that's horizontal or vertical. It will work out that shortest distance so you can make sure there's enough clearance between them. Things like that, very quick and easy to use. I said before, we've got the section tool. So at this point, I've got the whole building visible. I've just now activated my section plane. I can now just double click on any surface and that now automatically cuts a section on that one, and I can then drag that through the building. I can realign it to different objects. I can take it onto a floor plan and have a horizontal section that we can then just drag around. So the tools are all about just making it very easy for people to access the information sort of without having to be an expert in BIM tools and working out how the software works. So the 3D space is a very easy to use tool that can you can do an awful lot of stuff within. I'm going to jump into the 2D space now. So we can pull all the drawings from our authoring tools into here as well. We can bring PDFs in. We can connect to a few different CDEs. So if you're using BIM 360 or ACC as your CDE, if you're using SharePoint as your CDE, we can pull the drawings in directly from those tools into Revisto. So in here, we've got some drawings that are pulled in from SharePoint. We've got drawings that are pulled in directly from the authoring tool. I think we've also got some in here that are pulled in from BIM 360. So you can combine different drawings from different locations depending on how the team are working. But the really good thing with our 2D information, so I'm going to just open up our level 1 architectural GA. So I can now review this drawing in lots of different ways. We can take measurements. So I can come in here and I can start to measure areas of spaces if I want to double check the areas that are here. I don't have to do rectangles. I can do custom shapes as well if I wanted to, and we can sort of set that up and we can see those areas. So we can use this now purely as a review tool. If the drawings are pushed directly from the authoring tool, all the scales are set automatically, so you don't have to do any manual processing to it. If you're bringing PDFs in, you can just set the scale to be kind of like 1 to 100, 1 to 20, or a custom scale if it needs to, and it remembers that information, so you only have to do it once, which again is very useful when it comes to reviewing this information. One of the two of the best features of Revisto are with the 2D information. So we mentioned as well at the start about the 3D map being one way to navigate the 3D model. We can actually use our 2D drawings as a way to navigate our model, because everything that we do in Revisto is connected in the 2D and the 3D environments. So by clicking on this little button here, which is our jump to 3D, this basically turns my 2D drawing into a map. So if I want to go to the base of this staircase now, I can just double click here. And now that's immediately where I'm taken in the model. So it's automatically connected. So I don't need to spend ages trying to work out where I am. If I want to go to the escalator now, again, I can just double click and now we're at the escalator level. So it's really straightforward to go from the 2D to the 3D model. What's also nice, this is quite a recent feature that we've just added, is if I'm in the model, but I'm not quite sure where I am, I can just say, jump to current position on 2D. So that now takes my current 3D position and it shows me all the drawings that are in Revisto already that relate to this particular area. So I can go to my my level 2 plan, which is where I am, and that now shows me I'm now centered on the screen where I am on 2D. So we can go from 2D to 3D, but we can also go from 3D to 2D as well. And then one of the other great functions of Revisto, and this is one of our oldest features, but still one of the sort of favorites of most of our customers, is typically you have a 2D drawing open on one screen, a 3D model open on the other screen. But for as long as Revisto has been around, we've basically been able to do the hyper modeling where we can overlay our 2D drawing into our 3D model. So this has automatically positioned our 2D drawing in the correct location. I've got a section tool which allows me to move it around. So I can position it slightly differently. I can then pull the model up around it. And what this gives me now is the context of all the 3D geometry, but with all the annotation of the 2D information. So I can actually see what rooms are, I can see what objects are, I can see all the data that goes with it, all on the screen at the same time. So it's a very useful function to be able to review, to make sure that what you're seeing on 2D relates to your 3D information as well. You can use this as a review tool. You can use this to check information that the 2D and the 3D match each other. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can kind of do that. And it's not just with plan views. I think, well, for the Nordics, it's probably slightly different because a lot of the information is modeled all the time. From the UK market, what we often see is that like connection details and things like that are drawn in 2D, not actually modeled. Oh, someone's broken that one. So, but what we can do is we can come in here to any of these sort of details that we've got, and we can overlay that into the model as well. So we can now start to understand kind of how these connections are due to work. Again, if they're all modeled, then that's great. If they're not modeled, we can still start to visualize them in the 3D environment to understand how they would work, making sure that that connection is going to work, making sure the splice location makes sense within the 3D geometry and things like that. So it's not just a 2D detail that is the only way you can view it is as a PDF. We can actually pull that into the 3D model and see how that's all working as well at the same time. So that's kind of Oh, the other thing we can do with the 2D drawings as well, whenever you update a 2D drawing, it's automatically creating a revision history for that one. So if I come in here, if I look at this drawing, if I want to see how is this drawing compare, like does it compare to a previous version? We have this A/B button here, which allows us to do a drawing comparison. I can go back to a previous version, and it's going to automatically highlight all the changes that have occurred. So here we can see that walls have moved. And I have this slider, which allows me to go to the old version of the drawing, to the new version of the drawing, or we can see both on screen at the same time. So I can easily start to visualize kind of changes. I can see that the escalator has moved and walls have moved and things like that. So if this is being used directly from one of our authoring tools, this is all happening automatically. There's nothing required manual to do this process. It's just going to happen. If you are working with PDFs, you can still set this up and you can still do the same thing. It just takes a little bit longer to do because it's a bit of a manual process to do that. But in general, it's pretty easy and pretty straightforward to work with. The third space of Revisto that we have is our issue tracker space. So I'm just going to go back to my home view. So our issue tracker is a way in which you can raise and communicate issues with people. There's different ways in which we can do this. We have a normal issue, which is basically kind of a way in which you raise an issue, but you have to fill out all the information manually every time. We also have stamps. With stamps, this allows us to sort of template out the information. So if I'm raising a design issue with my architectural team, I can automatically assign it to my architectural lead. I can set deadlines. I can give it a basic title, which they can then add to, and things like that, which just makes it a bit easier to work with as we go. But the issue tracker is, again, fully connected in 2D and 3D. So I got some examples here. So in here, this is an issue that was raised in the model, whereby we've said that the stair location is wrong. They want the stair to be moved directly to the 3D model. I can see this one has been marked as solved. So I can now review this in the 3D model. So I click on the 3D button over here, and I can see that the stair location has now changed and it's been updated. So the issue is always showing the markup based on when the issue was created. But the 3D information is always showing the latest set of 3D information. So you always know that's the latest model. And I can see that that's then been reviewed. So I can then go in here and I could mark it as solved, or I might edit the issue and say we've got a clash with some pipes, and then move the issue onto the mechanical engineer so that they move the pipes to the right location. So again, everything we're doing there is connected. This issue was raised in 3D, but it's still connected to the 2D drawings as well. So we can still see the location of that issue on 2D. I can go to a GA plan just to see it better. So I can see that issue where it's located on the 2D drawing as well. We can also raise issues directly in 2D. So if I go to my markup, so again, let's do that properly. Let's go back to my 3D and then jump on here and go to my 2D one. So again, the stair to be positioned in front of the door, and I can see that the stair is now there. We have the sheet comparison, and what this does is it automatically stores the version of the sheet when the issue was created. So I can now do a comparison, and I can see again how the sheet looked previously, how it looks now, and we can see how that's been reviewed. So as I'm going through it, I can then easily see the changes that have occurred to make sure that everything is working properly. We can import issues from Celebri. So this is a very basic clash issue that was pulled in from Celebri. I can then jump to my 3D and I can see that in 3D. Again, I can also go to 2D and I can see where that's positioned on a 2D plan. So we can see that location on the plan view as well. So we can see what beam that's related to and so on and so forth. So everything we do all the time, no matter what, is always connected in the 2D and the 3D environment. We can also do things like attaching 360 photos to our issues. So in this case here, someone's gone into the model. They're on site and they're looking up into the ceiling void here. They've attached a 360 photo to it. We can actually mark up the 360 photo as well, and then we can still spin around that and see that information. So again, different types of issues that can be generated within here. It's just, again, very useful for lots of different reasons. A new function that we've added in very recently to Revisto is that whenever you raise an issue now in the project, so if I'm in here and I've got an issue with this column, I'm going to come down to my structural stamp. I'm going to place that on here. I might mark it up. I might give it some more information. So I might just draw a cloud around it and add a comment and said, to be moved away from doorway, whatever it might be. I can log that in. I can change the colors. I can log all that. But what's really useful about our issue tracker with this set of information, if I come up here, so that's the issue that I raised. So the information has all been filled out automatically. So it's automatically assigned it to the structural lead, which in this case happens to be me. I can then move this on and I can say that actually we'll assign this to Martin as he's in the call with us. So Martin will now get notified about this issue. He can start going in there and adding comments to it. We can add tags to help it to be able to refine it when we search for it. But what's really useful is that it knows when you place an issue in the model, what grid reference it's closest to, what level it's at, what room it's in. If you're using spaces and areas, it will also show the space and area information. And if I'm reviewing this issue and I want to see, are there other issues in the circulation space, I can now just click on this room tag, and that's now automatically filtered out all the issues that occur in that room. So I can now see that there's a clash issue in that room, as well as the issue that I've generated. So we can actually filter this information very quickly to review what's going on. We're now looking at this issue, and I want to review this. So I'm just going to go back to my model. So we've got an issue that's been raised. In this case, this is a class detection issue. I do have open my Revit model for this project. Again, this could be a Tekla model, microstation model, whatever it is, any of the tools that we work with directly. I have this open. All I do is click on this issue tracker button. That now connects Revisto and the model together. I can then just double click on here. And I then switch back to my Revit. In Revit, I've now been taken directly to that location in the model. So I can now see that clash, and I can then start getting into my project and add in the openings to make those changes. So I can actually kind of, update the model very quickly from the issue tracker without having to work out where those issues are, what's going on. The switchback allows me to do that directly. And just switch back to Revisto. The switchback isn't only for the issue tracker. So if I'm in the model, if I'm reviewing something and I want to just quickly jump to a particular location. So I want to sort of review this area in my model. I can just select some components. I can just right click and I can say switch back to Revit. And then in Revit, that's now taken me directly to that location in the project. So I'm now in that particular area. In that case, I don't have the doors or the walls in the structural model. They're obviously from the architectural model, but I can switch back from the Revit model at any point to different locations. So again, if I just let's just isolate out the structural model just so that we can see this. So again, if I want to review this column and something like that, I can then just say switch back to Revit, and then Revit's going to automatically create a section box around my components. It's selected them because I'm in that model, so it can easily see where I am. So I can then just start to review that very quickly. The other really useful thing that we have is that if I go back to Revisto, so if I'm now on a 2D drawing, so I'm going to go to my structural drawings because I've got them open. So I'm going to just raise an issue on this particular location. So I'm going to just create a structural stamp, and we're going to just say, well, we'll just pretend that I'll mark it up very quickly and just say stair to be reviewed. So that's now logged in there. When I'm now again in the issue tracker, I can do a switchback now. So let me just get Revit back open just so that we can. So I'm currently in the 3D view within here. If I jump back into Revisto, if I now double click on this stamp, so the switchback is happening the same, but this time it's actually going to open the relevant drawing that the issue was raised on. So I can actually switch back to the 2D environment as well as the 3D environment, which again will save a lot of time trying to find the right drawing when the issues are raised on Revit is obviously quite slow at opening drawings, so it takes a little bit of time. But there we are. I'm immediately now taken to that drawing, so I can then get in there and I can start reviewing that staircase. So we can do a switch back to the 2D and the 3D environments with our authoring tools, which again is all about saving time, making life a lot easier for people. Everything that I've shown you is also possible to do on the iPad. So if I just pull my iPad screen onto here. So this is my iPad. I'll just hold it up to the camera just so that you believe me that I am running this on my iPad. So again, we can navigate through the model here using the iPad. I can go to my viewpoint. So the viewpoint that we created, if I sync the model, it would be available. But I can then switch to different viewpoints that have been set up. I can do all that. I can start to measure, so I can come on here and I can do my minimum measurement tool, so we can see how far away is that wall from that pipe, and again it's now automatically worked out the minimum distance. We can cut sections, we can do raise issues, we can take photos, all that kind of thing is possible with this one. So if I then raise an issue, let's just do a photo, and then I'm going to use my camera and take a photo. It's going to be inception of Revisto, so we're just going to have a Revisto tunnel going on. I'll just take a photo. I can use that photo. So that photo is now logged into Revisto, and again, if I was to go back to the Revisto application now, that issue's been raised automatically. It's just syncing, and there's the issue on my computer that was taken on my iPad. So everything is instantaneous. It's all connected immediately. And that also means that everything that we do is connected directly into our dashboards. So on here, we can now create dashboards in our web-based tool. So on here, you can start to view kind of all this information. So I've got some dashboards set up already that show me kind of the statuses of all my issues in the project. So I can see that 6,191 issues have been closed. We currently have 219 open, 500 in progress, 15 solved. So this is a good overview of what's going on in the project. I can see how many are clashes, how many are like normal issues raised, can see who has the most issues assigned to them. So we can see the project team and where their issues are. I can filter by clash tests. We can do timeline charts, so we can see kind of over time. Green is the solved and closed issues, red is the ones that are new and in progress. And obviously I want to make sure that the red line is sort of staying lower than the green line. That means that I'm solving more issues than are being raised. So again, we can see that easily. We can also see kind of over time how issues have evolved. So I can see in the last month, so on here, this is my clash issues in the past 30 days. On August the 15th, we had 537 issues raised. Today, of those 537, 462 are now marked as closed, so they've been resolved, and I can see that 75 still remain open, and then we've also got 74 that have been opened, and also 49 that have been opened and closed within that time, so I can easily sort of see how that's going on. What we can also do on our web-based tool is go to our issue tracker, and we can actually start to visualize the issues that have been raised directly within the web-based tool. So these are now kind of all of our issues are now all available in here. I've got a preset list, so again I can go back to my example set of issues that I've got, or I can go to my current issues. So this is now just loading up, and what we should have, if I go photo, that should be able to find the issue that I just raised on my iPad, now available on here. We can actually open directly in the application from here. So if I click on open in app, that's now going to open Revisto and take me directly to that issue as well. So I can then review it in the 3D model, and I can do the switchback functionality. So yeah, that's kind of a lot of information that we've just run through on the general sort of processes of Revisto. That's kind of an introduction to what Revisto can do. What I want to just end on for the next sort of 10 or 15 minutes is just to run through our clash detection tool. As I said, this has been in Revisto now since November last year, so it's almost been a year that we've had this. And a lot of our customers are seeing huge improvements in the time it takes to do everything, and the way in which it works is just saving an awful lot of time and a lot of effort on their side. So one of our biggest customers in the UK they've seen about a 50% time saving by using the Revisto clash automation, because they're not having to export information to Revisto and export information to other tools to run your clash detection in. You just put it in Revisto and then it just goes straight away. And then our tool is actually very robust and very quick to use. So it's also, our clash detection tool is probably the first real clash detection functionality that is actually collaborative. By that, I mean that we can have multiple people in the same project running different types of clash detection at the same time. So I can see that some of the clash tests that are already in this project are currently locked out. So I can see that I've got a few colleagues that are currently running clash detection and things like that. But you can have multiple people in clash detection at the same time doing different functions of this. So let's create a clash test. So I'm going to run a clash detection. This is based on cert sets. So you create the cert sets in the first place, and then you'll use them for the project. So I'm going to do structural framing versus mechanical ducts and mechanical pipes. And we will call this webinar demo. Webinar demo. So you can run clash detection at a model level. You can run it at depending on how you create the cert sets, you can run this in all different kind of ways, but I'm just going to run the structural versus the ducts and pipes at the moment. We say done. We can import settings from previous clash tests, so you don't have to spend a lot of time setting up all the sort of settings and all the basic functionality. When you create a new clash test, you can either duplicate an old clash test or inherit the settings. We've got our ignore rules, so we can ignore items insert sets. So I can come in here and I can say I want to ignore the insulation from the clash detection, and that just means that you won't get any results including insulation. If insulation is clashing, it will just be ignored at this point. We can turn it off and then we'll get the results. It's very flexible on how that works, and you can also say whether or not the cert set is in object A or object B, so you can actually control which side of the clash it is on as well if you want to be more specific. We've got different types of clashing that we can do. So our standard hard clash is just, do the surfaces touch? If they touch, it will raise an issue. We've got a clearance clash, so that you can put in here that you want to make the object slightly bigger. When we were building the tool, one of the biggest issues that we've always had with kind of other clash detection tools is that it's always drawing a zone around the whole object. And sometimes that isn't what you want. So we have the option to specify the horizontal and the vertical clearance. So that way you can actually check around an object, but not above it. If you know that it's meant to be up against the ceiling, you don't want the clearance to be vertical, otherwise you'll get kind of false positives. So you can leave the vertical clearance as 0 and then the horizontal clearance is 0.5 meter to make sure there's no objects within 0.5 meter of it. The same for tolerances, and tolerances horizontal and vertical. Then we have a directly above below rule, and we can choose which surfaces it goes to. This is really good if you want to check that all your electrical sockets are a minimum of 150 millimeters above the floor. You can run this rule and it will check that information for you. I'm going to run a hard clash right now. Again, one of the key things for our clash detection tool is that our grouping is built into the clash detection, so you don't have to do it manually or pay for an additional tool to do the grouping. It's all here, so we can group by the objects, we can group by what level it's at, what grid intersection. The grid intersection for building is not typically used, but for our infrastructure projects, a lot of people are using this to do, they draw grids for their chainage lines, and then they can use this to group by, so they're actually grouping by like their 5 meter chainage lines or things like that, whatever the infrastructure material are doing with that process, they can use the grid intersection to do that. We can group by what room it's in, what area it's in, what zone it's in, what proximity it's in, or we can use any property condition within the model to do our grouping. So I'm just going to group by level, by room, and then I'm going to add a property condition, element B, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say system classification. So I'm going to group by that one. The group name has automatically been generated down here, but I can put some free text in just to make it read a bit cleaner. So I can say at level in room, and then is. So we can do that one. As we go next, we can then specify, we've got simple and advanced automation. I'll show both. I'll start with the simple automation. So at this point, all we're doing is specifying kind of what stamp we want to use for the issue. Because this is structures versus mechanical, most of the time it's going to be on the mechanical engineer to adjust the positions of the pipes or the ducts. So I'm going to just set my standard up to be that one, and I'll just say finish. At this point, we haven't run the class detection, so I'm just now going to run that. Again, it's very quick, but the key thing here is that it's generating the clashes and grouping them all at the same time. So that's now done. And then what we get told is that we've generated 1,997 clashes, and they've been put into 700 groups. We wanted it to be very clear, the difference between clashes and groups, because again, people can be quite generic with their grouping and only report on the number of groups they've got. So they might be, oh, we've only got 13 groups, so we're doing really well, but within those 13 groups, there might be 37,000 clashes. So we wanted to have both data sets kind of available to you here. We can then open up the class detection and we can start to review this information. So I can just select all of them and we'll see all of the clashes. By default, it will go to like a isolate and transparency mode so that we can see all of that. I can come down here and I can just go to isolate. So that will turn off everything else and only show me the objects that are clashing. And we can then start to view that. One of the, again, differentiators between Revisto's clash automation is the filtering that we have available to us here. So we can automatically start to break our information down into smaller chunks. So I can filter by level. So I could say, okay, just show me the clashes at level 9. And then that's automatically now just showing me clashes that appear at level 9. I could do level 9 and something else, but I want to come in here and I go to my search sets now and I've got my systems and I can now be, okay, let's look at our fire protection. So I want to see the sprinkler pipes. And what that's done now is it's automatically filtered out all the results. So all we're looking at are issues where beams are clashing with sprinklers. So if I hover over this one here, we'll see that that's a fire protection wet. So I know that is my sprinkler. So it's very easy to go from, so we've got 700 results at the moment, but I'm in a meeting and we're currently working with the fire engineers and we only care about level 4 at the moment. That's the area that we're reviewing. So I can just do that. And instantly we've gone from 700 results down to 4 to review. So it's much easier to sort of see what's going on, understand what the status is. And at this point we can say, okay, these are issues. So I'm going to mark those as reviewed. And in a moment, I'm going to create an issue out of them as well. But I'm now done with the fire protection and I can then come down here and I can say, okay, now let's show me the domestic water issues. So I can click on that. And again, I can see that there are 3 issues with domestic water at level 4. So again, I can review those ones. So it's very easy to filter the results into much smaller manageable chunks so that you can actually review them in kind of, in a much more easy way. It's there's other ways in which we can filter by as well. So I could actually come in here and I can say rooms. And then what I might do is I come down here and I just type in the word plant room. I'll select all of them. And now I'm looking at all the issues to do with MEP versus beams that occur within plant room spaces. Because Revisto automatically recognizes what room it's in, we can filter by that data and we can start to review this again in a very quick and easy way without having to spend any time actually thinking about it. So once we've done that, I've done my review. I'm now going to sync these with the issue tracker. It's now giving me the option, do we sync the 7 that we've reviewed or all of them or 700? In this case, I only want to sync the 7. So I'm going to do sync those. These are now automatically being pushed to the issue tracker. So it's told me 7 issues were created. If we come into the issue tracker now, these are the issues that I've just created. We can flick through them, we can see them, we can look at them in 3D. We can see where they exist in 2D, so we can review the 2D drawings, where it's located, and things like that. We can again, I can take this issue in here and I can just double click, and in Revit, it's then going to take me directly to that location. I don't have those pipes in this particular model, so that's why they're not visible, but the switchback works very quickly. So that's our sort of our simple class detection. I just want to run through a bit more of an advanced process as well. So in this case here, I'm going to run the whole structural model versus the fire model and the mechanical model. And we'll just say webinar demo 2. What's nice about this is that I'm getting a warning here to tell me that the actual search sets that I've used appear in another class detection test. So I can see that this one exists in Reese's solid test. It's just basically to let you know that you are going to get some duplicate results here because the test already exists. So you might go back and then just review that clash test rather than create it again. I'm going to ignore it and I'm going to go through and I'm going to create this. I'm going to import my settings from the webinar demo set. So I'm just going to tick everything here. So I'm going to import that. So automatically it's got my installation in the ignore rules. It's got the hard clash. It's got the grouping specified how I wanted it. And then we go through here and it's got the stamp specified for this one. I'm now going to switch to my advanced automation. And we're now going to start adding some different rules in. So at the moment, my clash test is the structural model versus everything mechanical. By doing that, what you end up with is different results that you want to push to different people. So in this case here, I'm going to say, I'm going to call this fire protection. And I'm going to say if the clash group has at least one object matching the cert set, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say fire protection, then we're going to create an issue and we're going to use the stamp. And I have a stamp specifically set up for my sprinklers. This is now automatically assigning it to my fire engineers. We can come down and add another condition. We'll call this one ventilation. So say okay to that. And then we'll say if it contains ventilation, then we'll assign that to our ductwork engineer. So it's starting to push this out to different people. And then again, I'll do one more. So we'll just do, we'll call this water. It's so if it contains the MEP system of domestic water, then we'll assign this to our mechanical services. And these are all going out to different people on the project. And we also have our default stamp. So what that basically means is if it doesn't meet the criteria that we've specified here, then it will use our default stamp. So I'm going to hit finish on that one. I'm going to just say, okay, I'm going to rerun clash detection. So again, it's going to go through, it's going to generate all these results. Again, takes no time at all to actually run the clash detection. So I think it's going to find about 6,000 results in this scenario, 6,030, there we go. So 6,030 groups generated into 1,795, or 6,030 clashes into 1,795 groups. And then we come down here, and this time I'm just going to filter by level 7. And I'm going to pick a handful. I'm not going to pick all of them. I'm just going to pick a handful of them. And I'm going to mark these as reviewed. So and I'm then going to sync that with my issue tracker. I'm not even going to think about it. It's going to sync 56 clashes or 56 groups at this point. So I'm now running through that. That's now generating that. The good thing about this is that I don't have to worry about manually assigning them to the right people, because the sprinkler clashes will automatically go to my fire engineer. The ventilation clashes will automatically go to my ductwork engineer. My chilled water will go to my building services engineer, and everything else that gets created will still be generated. So if I go into here, I'm just going to filter by test and webinar 2. So in here, it's created 56 clashes. So this one here, we can see is using the mechanical stamp. Because it's on a sanitary system, we didn't set a rule for the sanitary pipes. So that stayed on the standard stamp. Then we come down here and we can see this is fire protection. So this has automatically gone to our sprinkler stamp and assigned that to our sprinkler engineer. As I scroll down, so this is exhaust air. So that's then gone to my ductwork engineer. So Revisto has actually automatically pushed the issues to the right people on the project within that same time period. So I've not had to do very much work. I've had to set up the cert sets and make sure that there's stamps that correspond with those cert sets. And then using that advanced automation, we can start pushing the same results from the same clash test to different people instantly without any real sort of thinking. So it takes an awful lot of the sort of the time-consuming aspect of clash detection away from the user, and Revisto is doing most of it for you. So all you have to do is run through them and review them. But because of our filtering tool, you can review them very quickly in the areas that you actually care about, and then push those issues to the issue tracker sort of very quickly. I've just noticed the time. Pretty much used up the full time slot. I kind of get into it a bit too much and sort of forget that I'm actually speaking to people who might want to ask some questions. So I'll end that there. But again, I'll just say that if you are interested in seeing more or having a more in-depth demo of the clash automation tool, please reach out to Martin, and sort of him and I or one of the other members of the technical team will jump in a call with you and be able to show you this in more detail. So yeah, are there any questions, Martin, just whilst we're for the final few minutes?
We have a row of questions. I think I have been able to answer a lot of them, but a quick one here is Revisto supporting point clouds? Maybe you could just show.
Yeah. So on this project here, let me just show you this. So around the back, we have a point cloud available. So this is a point cloud, existing point cloud with new Revit geometry shown. And if I go to my clash automation, I've already got a clash test set up for this one. So I got my point cloud clashing. So we can actually, got a filter on, that's why I can't see it. So I can actually do, why is that not showing up? It's oh, there we go. It's so we can actually incorporate our point clouds into our clash detection as well. With the white option, it doesn't look that great. If I just change that back to current, it's I can then jump back into here. And we can now see the point cloud data that's clashing with sort of proper modeled, like new geometry clashing with existing point cloud data. So yeah, so point clouds, we handle all the sort of standard formats. So the RCSs, RCPs, we do the Faro formats directly. So lots of different formats that can be read directly into Revisto, and then that can be used in the clash detection process, as shown on the screen here.
And
so yeah, hopefully that answers that one. It's
huge point clouds as well. That's also a big point for us. Mohammed is wondering how the drawings are connected to the 3D model. I think the question is, in general, how do we actually link up to the model, and how is that updated?
Yeah, so if you're using a tool to push the drawings in, so I'll use Revit as an example for this one. So in Revit, you're pushing the sheet into Revisto. What it's doing is it's using the coordinates of the sheet to locate it in the coordinates of the model. So that's how it understands the XYZ positioning of it. So it's done like that. And then we also, in Revit, we use the view range. So we use the top and bottom plane of the view range to connect what area of the 3D model vertically is then connected to that sheet. So any issue that you raise in the 3D model that sits within the view range of that drawing will show up on that drawing and be connected to it. With other tools, in MicroStation, you use the extents of the section box with the floor plan to do that. So that's how it's done. It basically uses the XYZ coordinates of the floor plan to locate it in the model correctly, and then the extents of the view range to specify kind of the area of the 3D model that's also connected to that drawing. So it's all done automatically. Or if you are doing bringing PDFs in, you can manually set up the 3D overlay as well. It takes about sort of 15 to 30 seconds per drawing to do. So if you're bringing 1,000 drawings as PDFs, we wouldn't recommend that you do all 1,000 this way. But if of those 1,000 there were 10 like key GAs, then it's pretty quick to set up, and then it remembers it the next time that you add a PDF to it. So as long as the viewpoint on the sheet hasn't moved, the overlay will still work with the PDFs as well automatically. So
cool. One more before we are done. I think is it possible to color elements in a view based on a set of rules?
Yep. So we've got an appearance profiler in here. So yeah, I didn't get time to mention that one, but in here we've got different appearance templates and different appearance profiles. So if I wanted to see like MEP and structures only, I can activate that. What that's going to do now is going to set the structural model as white, the mechanical model is going to go to blue, the ducts are going to be pink, the mechanical equipment is going to be yellow, and the pipes are going to be blue, and that's then set up on here, so you can then start to visualize it. This can be used for different purposes. So again, I can see kind of all the fire rated walls in the model. If I apply that one, it's going to color the walls that have a fire rating. So I can see that this blue means that there's a 2-hour fire rating on it, and things like that. So you can start to visualize it. We've also got some people that are using it to the same process to track progress on site. So I have a a structure's tracking progress. So on here, it basically, the concrete pour complete equals no, then it shows it red. What's interesting with this process is this is using custom properties. So within here, let's just do that again. So in here, we've got a custom property. So this is data that only exists inside Revisto. At the moment, this is marked as no. I can just come in here and just mark that as yes. And now immediately that's changed color. So you can use different data points to set different colors for different purposes, absolutely. And again, these can be individual to a user, or they can be shared with the whole project team so that everybody can see it as well. So it's you can do it just for yourself if you've got a very specific use case, or you can then share that with the whole team so everyone can benefit from those kind of appearance profiles and things like that. So.
Right. I think that's all the time that we have for today. A minute late. Thank you for an awesome demonstration as always, Lewis. And thank you very much all for attending. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or any follow-up that you would be interested in sharing with me. So thank you very much for today, and see you later on.
Thank you, everyone.